Hello, and welcome to drawing our space station and spaceship. So, in the previous episode, we went through here and started sketching out what the space elevator is going to look like. Talked about a whole bunch of reference images and how I'm pulling my forms and shapes from my reference images and translating them into my painting. After that, started working on the space station where the space elevator is heading to. This is the planet down here with the blue line, and this is going to disappear down into the atmosphere. But we're going through and figuring out the orthographic views of the space station. So the space station itself started off with this very, very rough drawing within my illustration for placement. And now I'm going through and using the orthographic drawings to help me understand what this space station actually is, what it looks like, and working through the details on it. This is part of what you guys are going to be creating as well. So you've got some orthographic drawings that you're going to be submitting. The orthographic drawings that I'm asking for are of the spaceship. However, I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on what my spaceship is going to be. The space station is a little further away and was a lot more unclear. So for this example, you could imagine this being a generational spaceship where it's an entire society of people that are living on it, and they're heading through the cosmos onto to go seed new life and set up a colony somewhere else. So maybe that's what this is, and they're dropping their landing vessel down on the ground. But yeah, so here we've got our space elevator and we've got our orthographic drawings set up. One of the other challenges with the orthographic drawings is to be able to create a front, a top, a side view, a 3/4 view of what this spaceship is going to look like. So what I'm likely going to do here is now that I've got so many more of my details and big shapes sort of figured out on this spaceship here, I can go back and I can update this drawing, bring in the line work, and drop it into my scene. And, I'm getting something out of these orthographic views that I'm doing. If you do this right and you make it look cool, you can usually get some pretty good results out of these. So here is some previous orthographic views. There we go. Yeah, here's a good example. This one. So here is one of the spaceships, and you can see I've got a front view, a top view, a 3/4 view, and then within this layout design, I've separated it out so that I've got the side view just in line, I've got the 3/4 view just within line art, but then duplicated it, scaled it up, and then gone and done a paint job on it, and it looks really, really clean. And this is a great thing to be able to add to your portfolio, and it really helps with the iteration process. Which brings us to what I'm circling in on here. One of the other things that you guys are going to be doing is submitting 3 different options for your final compositions for this space station and spaceship. And I don't want to sell you short, because I feel like if you're just starting off with sci-fi drawing or environment art, a lot of times the first idea that you put forward maybe is not the best idea. That is you in your brain still figuring out the shapes. You're still figuring out what your spaceship, your space station is going to look like. And it might not be, the best for the final shot within this animated series or within the animated film. So what I'd like to do today is take these initial concepts that I've developed. Let me close this guy out. And I want to show you guys some other vantage points that we can take from this space station, spaceship concept, space elevator that I've got going on, and trying to figure out what else I can create and do with these. So I've got my screen set up over on the side. This is 20 by 20 at 150 DPI. I might end up changing the canvas size depending on my composition, but for now, I'm in a pretty good spot to go through and draw this from a different perspective. So what happens if all of a sudden maybe we change the view on this thing? So what I'm going to do is let's reverse the camera. So instead of looking up towards the space station, now what actually happens within our composition if we are looking down at the ship coming and arriving? So just like the previous process, I'm starting off really, really light here with my main sketches and body of work. Getting some of my sci-fi circles going in here and just exploring what this space can look like for a massive space elevator to come in and arrive. So thinking about the Eiffel Tower right now and how it's sort of broken up into its various regions and trying to come up with some just interesting structures for what this might look like to be able to pull up the space elevator. So there we go. We got our line running on down here. That's going to be going through. We got our two big clamps on either side that are holding it in place. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got our various sections. All right, so we already figured out a bunch of stuff with this. That section was sticking out over to the side before, so let's give that its same region. We've got our two little components that are housing the storage for this thing, and then we've got one big one here in the back. It's kind of doing its own thing as well. So now we've got our basic shapes that are broken up. Let's go back to that orthographic view, and we can see that here we've got a really big bar that sort of goes across. And goes down. So let's imagine again, it looks like it's pretty straight up on either side. So pretty straight up and across. This is going to end here, pretty straight up and down. There we go. And now we can do something fun with the front. So let's move down and over to be able to open this thing up. And we're carving into it. Probably just need to bring in my my line art at this point. You know? So we're just going to throw this guy up here for now, or double click on the gray area of my layers, do a color overlay, and let's give it a color. So now it's red, and that means that we're going to be able to see it here. Can't really see it all that well. I think it needs to live up here. All right, I think that might influence our drawing ability a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to keep moving forward. So what I'm thinking about next is to make this composition more interesting. We would have the big planet underneath it. We've got the big spire thing that I haven't drawn into this orthographic view yet. But we've also got these big pieces on either side that are coming off. And I definitely want to highlight those within my drawing somehow. So maybe have them be, not quite as far away. Going down. Starting off with, again, my basic shapes. There we go. Got some more of them. And that's not really quite doing what I need for it to do with the composition. So let's leave that stuff in the bottom left-hand side. I think that's a pretty good size and scale. And because we're working in Photoshop, right, and we're working digitally, we can go in and we can scale up and over these items. There we go. Click. All right. So we've got a pretty big thing that's connecting for this tower that we can't quite see over here. And now we're in a good position to be able to take this stuff. I'm going to hit Control T to be able to scale it down. Let's push it back over here. All right, so now that'll give us a little bit more room to push these things further away. There we go. And now we're starting to get some of our big shapes within there. That's helping to fill up sort of the top left-hand side visually of our shot. I think that's nice having that dip over into the atmosphere right here. And then let's think about my blue pen, how we can look at this from another perspective. So I'm going to turn off that reference image right now. And if we've got within the picture on the left-hand side, the first sketch that I did of this, the space elevator is coming up from the planet. So where else could we include this planet? Let's circle it like that so that we get a little bit of the space, and then compositionally, I think it's doing something sort of interesting. So we're creating a line that's coming here. We've got another line that's pushing us down this direction. This line is coming over or this way. And then, of course, we've got this line that's coming down. So what I really want to do is make this the focus. And I've got some good things within the composition to be able, oops, image, repeat, edit, redo brush tool. There we go. I like that line that I drew. All right. So what have we got? Some good stuff to be able to point the viewer's attention to our space elevator, our space donut here. Well, this section is segmented off visually and a little bit. So we get the stripes kind of going through the scene. Think of it like Saturn's rings going around. So this whole section would be broken up. We've also got within the reference image some city buildings and some other things that I can design right in the front here that would be absolutely massive in scale. And just to be able to break up this upper edge so it doesn't look quite as boring and it's not quite as clean, so that this one is more clean and there's more visual space for the viewer's eye to rest within that section. And now we're starting to get a pretty interesting shot. Let's see here. Even up my composition just a little bit more. Give it more breathing space. And now we're starting to get something that works pretty similar to the first shot from a different vantage point. I like that because it allows me to go up and continue to draw this. We've got a big segment here. And then we've got the antennas on it, and then some other antennas, and this is actually going down. So let me erase that just to keep it on track with that first orthographic view. You can always change these things at this scale, but you see how I'm sort of discovering my space station and the spaceship, and then working my way through to be able to find what is compositionally interesting for this. So we've got a whole big old section that's quite a bit larger. down here now. And we can start to open up further. That's kind of interesting with the negative space there. I like that visually. And I think, equally these two are sort of doing the same thing. The first one, the first composition, is still going to be stronger because it's a little bit more dynamic, and I like the shapes better. And we don't have as much micro stuff that's going on with the second shot. Well, you still do. There's like giant skyscrapers and things that would be on this building, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life drawing 1,000 little windows. I did that on the last project. So I think that this one might work a little bit better for demoing the sci-fi stuff to you guys. So let's try this one more time. And what I want to do now, I'm just going to hide this stuff. And let's do another one. But this time, let's set it, I think, from this view, as if you are someone on this space elevator that's actually arriving up to and looking out from the ship. Let's see what that might look like. On here, we want our character to be able to look out the window. We've also got, all right, so we got our big window here. So this is the window that they're looking out on and what it is that they're able to see. We've got some of our other space here. Absolutely massive. 2 windows on either side. We're going up to the top. I'm using this first drawing as a starting point because I discovered so much within that first drawing. And then from there, so there's our side view, side window. And then I've got the window on top. So the window on top, distance, all right, corner here and here. So we can't really see that one's corner too well. Let's say that's the corner. And then we've got this corner, and this is going to be going straight back. So we're going to cheat it just a little bit, but I think that'll get us most of the way there. All right. So now, visually, we've got a spaceship stained glass window here. Do a color overlay so we can see what it is that I'm painting just a little bit better. Duplicate and duplicate. Merge it down. So we've got this space, and we're looking out into the vastness of space from the windows on the inside of the space elevator. Now, we're losing some details here, right? And this is what you always end up facing within animation art while you're trying to tell the story. And this is one of the problems, right? So you end up have to make these concessions. This is why we always use establishing shots whenever we're telling stories. But the idea for this, I think, is that we're supposed to be a little bit further along within the story. We already have this as a set place and environment. And frankly, throughout this course, I've done quite a few establishing shots. That Welcome to the Jungle project definitely constitutes as an establishing shot with how far back the characters are from the actual ship, or from the bridge with the elephant going across it. And so now I get to make some choices about this interior. It also means that I'm going to need some new reference images to figure this space out. All right, so I've got a space disco in there. This one's pretty cool. I like this one a lot because we've got a massive scale as well as some characters that are up close to the camera. And, this is the central part of this, probably the size of like a city bus. And then so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories on the interior of this shot. It works pretty good. And I think that they've done a good job of breaking up the walls. This is something that I want you guys to really think about when you're doing your space stations is what do the walls, what do the floors look like? How is the ceiling broken up in an interesting pattern? And for something like this, for this space station, I imagine it being, let's say, two stories tall on the inside here. And think of it like, and I keep on thinking of it in my head, is sort of like a train station, or being on a train, or being on an airplane, or an airport, to be able to get you to your next destination. So I think that there's some cool things that you can do visually with this to be able to set it up on two different levels. Mm, 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 mm. So remember, I've got my planet scape right here, so I don't really want to lose that horizon line too much. And I can work above it or below it in a pretty comfortable way here. So let's go in and let's say that's going to be one of the levels. And then we'll have the other level down here. So maybe it's like three levels, but we're only seeing two of them. And this little transition portion can certainly be a staircase. And let's get the size of the staircase figured out, or an escalator. I think in the far future, escalators aren't going to go away that much, because they're still just the easiest way to be able to do things. I was listening to a video earlier today where they're talking about, do we still need to use keyboards with everything moving towards voice commands? And I think that keyboards are still one of the fastest ways for us to be able to get our ideas out and down. Otherwise, I think the job of scribe would be a lot more popular in our modern times than it is. I was at this train station during the summer that was really, really beautiful and fascinating. It had some beautiful cement work on the inside of it. And so when I think about this, I think that there's an opportunity here. That's way too thick. There's an opportunity here to be able to create some cool support beams and lattice work that goes through this space. Let's give that a lattice as well, sort of pushing against the interior. And so I'm thinking like stadium design. If you've been to the Atlanta airport recently, they've got that sort of bone looking structure as you start to drive into it. And that sort of modern designs, I think, work pretty good for this. Put that behind glass so no one can really touch it or get to it. And there's the support beams going up, down, down. So we're giving the idea that some of this is moving backwards and then some of it is moving forwards. And it looks like an absolute jumbled mess right now. But as we continue to, now that we've at least got some of our big structures that we want to highlight, the next thing that I want to figure out on interiors is, how are other people breaking up these places? I can feel myself running out of ideas for how to be able to separate two different stories within this sci-fi seed. Excuse me. And let's go back to the online one, and got the reference images in here of two-story interiors that are broken up in interesting and fascinating ways. So there's a good window. But what I'm looking for is sort of a deck. We might have to ask ArtStation about this one. Okay. So if you end up doing a command deck, I can't recommend enough to, or a pilot seat or anything like that. You got to break up the floor space and think about how this is being used. This is very, very simplistic, just having a little ramp that's going up, and there's a lot more interesting forms that can be created. It does have some good subdivision on the edges here, but there's not much of a cohesive pattern with the floor shapes behind these two pilot seats, and so I think that this design ultimately fails. Also, they don't have any sticks to be able to drive the spaceship. Oh, whoop. There's one that's very similar to what it is that I'm creating. But once again, they're sort of breaking up all of these shapes here on the outside in a very, very simplistic way. I like that they've got some little characters for scale in it, but it can still be done a lot better. See where else I can look at to get some interesting shapes here. Check out the buy. Nothing interesting going on here. These are all residential. I'm looking for public space. One of the coolest office buildings that I've ever been in the city of Atlanta is actually the Weather Channel. They're down 400 somewhere, and it is just a cool entryway to that building. I thought it really stood out and was pretty neat to me. This is cool the way that they're sort of breaking up the ceiling with the flowy lines. That's all right. Not my favorite. Um, Modern. How about cruise ship? Okay, so we got a big theater. That's fairly interesting to be able to break up a wide plane. This has got my multi-tiered stuff that I'm looking for. So yeah, very much like a cruise ship. I like the chandelier that's hanging down, but I got to decide that's an awesome looking design. I've got to decide if this is going to be, you know, for the dock workers of outer space, or if this is a you know more leisurely vessel that's going up into the sky. I think treating it like an airport terminal is might be the way to go. That's pretty cool. I like those stairs right there, the intertextual patterning that's going on. That's more like it. Designers gone wild. Yeah, we also got the Hyatt in downtown Atlanta too. That looks like the inside of whale bones. It's pretty nice, but that's given us some really cool multi-tiered levels. I think this one's going to get the save. And yeah, don't be scared to look in some unexpected spaces for these for this inspiration, right? So ArtStation's great, but when you're getting your big, you still need to look at how other artists are rendering these spaces. This will get you here for the forms, but that'd be awesome. I'd go on a cruise ship. It's like that. Big jellyfish. But yeah, you still need to look at how other artists are rendering out their interiors. I really don't like when they do this, where it looks sort of like, Fabio is going to start walking down the stairs. I don't know what to call this, like mystic 90s Chateau Elan, mystic 90s chateau. There we go. That's the design style. I've in 3D before I've had to do this where people think, oh, let's just do sort of like a tree pole type thing. It never looks that good when you actually have it in 3D. It only works for on in the initial sketch. There we go. That's more like it. And we've got ship patterning. That's like a stadium with the different V shapes that are going on there. We've got sphere. All right, cool. Let's go back to it. Now I think we've got a much better idea of what it is that we can create. Do, 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 do. So that stair system was working pretty good. We want this thing to be sticking out here, and then these guys are going to be going back. So this is going to be going over to the side. Again, I want to be able to see the edge of the planet as much as possible. And this is going to be a big viewing window, so I think this works well. And then let's imagine, okay, got it. We're just about there. So that is breaking up my scene with sort of a lightning bolt going down the middle of it. But if we come up with that type of patterning, I think that can work pretty well to start to move through the front over here. We're going to lose a lot of the planet, man. I really don't like that too much. I want to be able to show up. Maybe the trick here is to move up the planet line just a little bit higher. See what happens. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So I think that's enough of it to give us the idea that we're going for. We're still getting about half and half space. Yeah, stay light. Be ready to change your ideas and think through and have a real discussion. I think that so many times starting animators, environment artists, illustrators, you want to wait until you have the entire concept and the entire idea ready within your head at first. But this is such an active process of really thinking through what the total design is going to look and feel like, and you're really discovering a lot within the drawing passes and phases of this for what could actually work. And I'm relying on the principles of design, so repetition, composition flow. And if I've established one of those, moving through the two of those guys, then I can probably get rid of this line. All right, so now we're starting to get something that's working a little bit better. It's looking cool. I like it. Now we're starting to get some spatial stuff that's finally starting to exist within our scene. That's working well for me. And then let's go in. We got our triangle, our X's going through here to be able to keep those nice and strong for the slats. Okay. So we're starting to get an interesting bone-like structure through this and going around our windows. Now we've got one of the cool things that I think we'll see in those reference images when we're looking at the various levels within a cruise ship. Oh, that's pretty cool too. I like that. Yeah, this would be more on the industrial side of what the interior of this thing looks like. But I think doing it as like an airport space is going to be interesting. So one of the things you might not consider is the way that architects have considered the space in between levels on a cruise ship or within any type of interior space. When you've got an opening like this, there's a lot of different ways that we can handle it. And this is a great area for detail within your scene. So this is pretty cool how they're breaking out the space. I like that. And let's look at, yeah, how these are handled. So we've got a lot of handrails moving around. We've got some handrails that are curved and rounded. You're going to see the underside. It's got a little bit of lighting. This has got a bevel on the outside of the space in between the floor. So let's have some fun with what that looks like and see if we can't apply our sci-fi motif to the way that this stuff looks. we go. So that's starting to look a little bit more interesting. And then let's give it a little bit of a bottom here. And I really like that line continuing all the way down. So we'll say that we can't see it under here, just a little bit of it will work for me. So that's starting to become pretty interesting. We've got our top level that we've designed. And now I want to visually break this space up. Again, this whole section here is moving back quite a bit. Got this, this under staircase here. We've moved past that. Staircase isn't going to be there anymore, but we're establishing our ground level. So if our character is hanging out within this scene, is this still an establishing shot? Our character size. Maybe would be this big for the space. So it doesn't quite read. It's still very much establishing. I mean, it's better than the other one where the character is like that size within the exterior shot, or the other one that I did, this one, where our hero, whoever the main character is up on this thing, and they are, infinitesimally small compared to the gigantuan scale of the space station. So that's not quite what we're looking for. I think this is a little bit more in line with where it is that we're heading for this project, because we actually get to see the character moving and walking around, and it becomes a really, really interesting shape. And now all of a sudden the story is sort of reversed. We've got, this is very much become our space station where our character is existing at. And all of a sudden, what do you know, I turned on my red layer, and that is showing me my space station way off in the distance. Now let's keep that red layer. My generational ship that I thought of originally. All right, there he goes. We set him right around there. Shoot, yeah, here is cool. We can kind of maybe justify it and tell the story of, what else is going on outside of this ship, and put another one out here that has the same window structure. And yeah, that, I think that helps to tell the entire story of this space station, where these characters are at and where it is that they're heading, in a pretty good way. So let's leave that guy there for now, turn him down visually a lot, so that we can barely see him. And I think we're starting to solve for what it is that we're looking for on this project. So we've got our space station in the background, interior, exterior of the ship, cool, big cruise ship style interior design. And I really like the idea that we're keeping this line going all the way over here to the side. So maybe I don't really want to lose that line going all the way down, because I think that's so cool, being able to show the planet all the way during this section. I mean, I could kind of love it and give us another deck right here. That's quite a bit closer. But that's getting awfully close to where that stuff is. So let's go in here. We can find a balance. I know we can figure it out. So we've got our line. Visually, I want to think about what this would look like. So if this stuff is mostly, some kind of color, probably white for the inside, we've got the contrast of the blackness of space. We want the exterior to be, probably red, so that it stands out. We got the black, white, blue, and red. For the ship, red accents on the inside. I think that can work. Let's figure out the scale of this thing. So handrails can still exist within the future. Safety first. And we'll come up with some kind of cool handrail design that's unique and interesting. Handrails for this stuff, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going through and figure out where the posts are going to be on it. And this gives me the option now. We've got a lot of negative space over here. Let's use whatever that reference image was. Of the dome type structure on the ship. And we'll break that out so that this becomes like a little restaurant or something like that. That's working pretty well. We can have it be see-through also. Starting with my very simple shapes, we've got these X's that we've already established throughout the scene. Keep it going around the backside. You can see the interior of this. And one more right here. So we'll still be able to see a little bit of the exterior. We get a little bit of lighting that's breaking through and coming through this thing. It becomes a desk of some sort. The future, let's do a more interesting concierge desk. And it's our future. We could design it. I would hate to be the concierge for this onboard, cruise ship, and they're not giving me a seat. So we are certainly giving this person a chair to be able to sit in. That is nice and futuristic looking. That feels good to me. And now let's start breaking up some of these areas. So we've got some good curves that we're using and we're establishing. This is a curve. We've got the green lines that are a curve. And I'd like to be able to start breaking up some of this into a curvature as well. Let's give it some curvation there with the way that we're breaking up the floor. I think that looks nice just to be able to keep that balance between the sharp angles and the curves going just a little bit more. Right here, we need to do something that's a little bit different and unexpected just to be able to connect the space in a fascinating way. Maybe it drops down or we're creating sort of a different level in that point. Could work pretty good also. I don't know. There's some reason why this needs to be a separate shape. Now all of a sudden we can come out from here and curve it. There it is. That's a good line. And now we're starting to get to our sci-fi breakout. Let's go in. Let's give this a line there. That looks good. And we're starting to break up our floor space in an interesting manner. We've got some cool interior design that's going on. We've got the blackness of space, the planet below, the space station. But structurally, this all started because my my base shapes were in there and functioning pretty well. I think that there's still a lot of room to do work on and details on the wall elements here to be able to get that third level of detail within sci-fi design and to design what the brackets and the connectors and everything look like on the inside of this ship. And that can look really cool. That sort of brings us back to bringing it all back around to this design, right? So a lot of the elements that we're seeing within this circle and this hatch, I can totally apply to all of the structural components of the space elevator that we're seeing from the inside in a really fascinating way, especially some of this stuff right here, I think is really, really strong. And using that on a mass scale can look absolutely beautiful within these wall elements. Like we're seeing molded plastic up on the walls. And yeah, there's still some more furniture design and other things that I will add to this. This is time for a new layer that we've got our purple pieces in there. But yeah, there definitely needs to be some type of sitting area, couches, some reason for people to exist around over here. Maybe some tables for sitting, something. And this is the thing. I don't been working in design for years, and I don't like being on my feet more than I have to anymore. So in this future, we are giving people all the seating they could ever want. I'll probably regret this choice later on, but it's my future. I get to design it. So along the way here, let's give some trash receptacles. Let's give some other little elements for folks to be able to, just sit and enjoy this space. That works pretty well there. The cool form. There's going to be a lot more details that I end up putting on the ground within this section, tighter details to be able to break it up in a more fascinating and interesting sort of way. This needs to be doing something else. So maybe right here, this is structurally, you can see down. Through and it becomes like a glass wall or something, or a glass walkway or something like that. Uh, just to be able to break it up and make it a little bit more interesting. So now I think we've got some pretty good forms, and this is cool, right? Because we've got our space station design figured out. We still got some orthographic views to do on that, but we've got the exterior of the space elevator that we started to develop out. And now we've looked at this from three different vantage points for what's going to be the strongest. So, of these three, I would say that surprisingly, I really love the first drawing that I did of the space elevator. I think it's got a great form. It can be rendered so absolutely beautifully, incredibly. But for the environments for animation class that we're working on here, doing this type of space station and getting the interior and showing that off a little bit more, I think is going to work better in the end for what this project is trying to accomplish. And if I was in a studio environment, this would satisfy the needs for the studio environment in a much stronger way. So for the rest of my evening, I'm going to get back to working on these orthographic drawings. I think that once I get a few more of those in there, they're going to look really, really cool. And I still want to go back and recomplete this one. And just like we saw with an example of the smaller single person spaceship that I had colored previously for the orthographic drawings, these can look great and they can be their own beautiful drawings that you share out on social media or within your portfolio. They can really add to the overall conceptual development when you're telling your story about how you got to this final environment. And yeah, we got a lot of stuff to do with this for this first week. And this is putting everything that we've been talking about in these other videos and within this course into practice. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording for right now. And thanks so much for checking this one out.